computer. All right, and we're going to hope that this all works well and that I don't lose my PowerPoint, uh, or at least control my PowerPoint. So, all right, so I'm going to go back to screen sharing so that you can see the PowerPoint. And if you checked your email, you should have gotten slides if you want to follow along and make some notes. I hope that's helpful for you. I'm sorry, it looks lengthy, but I think we'll go through fairly quickly.
I now have 3 copies of it.
Way to go, Shirley. That's you want a gold star?
Well, I got 3 copies of it, but I did because it didn't do anything in the beginning when I wanted to copy it. And all of a sudden, I got 3 of them.
It took a while to load.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so here we go. And we are, oh, that was the wrong button to hit. Let's try that again. That's the wrong button to hit. And play. How's that? There we go. All right. So, I do want to thank you all for coming in. And I think we have a combination, probably mostly presidents here, but we may have some vice presidents, and I hope we do, because I think this will be very beneficial to some of the vice presidents. And just a little practice here with your show of hands on your participant thing. If you can raise your hand, how many of your well, do it visually. How many of your first-time presidents this year? Just put your hand, I literally raise your hand. And how about, how many of you are experienced, have been president before? Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, that most of us are more first-time presidents, but I really appreciate that you're still willing to tune in and try to learn something new, and hopefully that will be the case here. So, oops, why did it do that?
Right. That's the last page.
Oh, am I on the last page? Yeah, thank you for attending. Yeah, you're right. I did the same thing on the other one, didn't I? All right. All right, so tonight we are going to be looking at some goals here, some objectives for the meeting. And I hope by the end of this, you feel like you did get some information and better understanding of how to lead, what your duties are, and how to plan a little bit for your year. Of course, we're already into the year. Initially, this was supposed to happen back in May, this seminar. So that would have helped you to plan a little bit more in advance, but there's still planning to be done. And I hope this will help you with that. Just some general expectations of your position. And then I have some resources at the end. So wanted to talk just briefly about leadership, a few things related to leadership. We know that leadership includes these things with guidance, motivation, and problem solving. They're all things that need to be a part of a good leader's ability in their toolbox, I guess you might say, or part of their responsibilities. And the guidance piece, it's your responsibility to kind of make sure that things are moving along in your club. People are getting things done. Members are fulfilling their responsibilities. It is not your responsibility to do everything for the club. If your club is functioning reasonably well, your job is kind of just to monitor, assist, and make sure stuff's getting done, but not actually do it yourself. That's kind of where the motivation piece comes in. We could probably do a whole seminar just on motivation if we needed to. And then, but motivation comes in a lot of different forms. Sometimes you need to be prodding your members. Sometimes it's just a little bit of encouragement. Sometimes you can use some incentives. You can use rewards. You can use competition. They're all means of motivating your members to get things done. And then on the problem solving end of things, sometimes you have a lot of time to think about how to resolve a problem, and other times you got to think on the spot. You don't have a lot of time to think through something. You've got to react and take care of something. So basically, you've got to expect the unexpected there. But whatever the case, don't panic. Just try to take a deep breath and think through to the best of your ability. But good leaders are good problem solvers. Different ways that you can lead, having a vision, and that can take a lot of different forms, but hopefully you have in your mind sort of a thought or something, a vision, so to speak, there, or what you want to accomplish through this year, or at least some initiative or something that you want to do. And that needs to be communicated to your members. How do you see this club functioning, or where do you want to take the club? Where in your year as president, how do you want the club to be better, or to improve the club overall and how it functions and what it does? Again, we talked about encouraging as a motivational thing, but encourage your members to reach that vision that you have, but also goals for the club and personal goals for them. How can they grow? Provide them with leadership opportunities. And this is really a critical one. If your club is going to be healthy and continue to have people ready to serve as club leaders and in president's roles, secretary, treasurer, that kind of thing, but especially, your leadership in terms of president, that's supposed to change every year. Ideally it does. And so that you don't have to be the president for the fourth time. You need to, part of your role is to put people in smaller leadership positions, starting with just individual responsibilities, maybe as a committee chairperson or something like that, or co-chair or vice chair, but start to build those leadership opportunities as they come along, or as you can. One way to help build those leadership skills is by attending trainings and encouraging a lot of your members to do that. That's actually part of the role of the first vice president, is to help develop and encourage the leadership aspect of the club. A mentoring program, that sounds kind of highfalutin, but that really is just a buddy system. So if you've got committee chairs, assign an assistant chair, so that there's somebody who's learning that role. So if the chairperson can't take over, chairperson of a project or of a fundraiser, you've got to have methods in place, or I'm encouraging you to have things in place where not just one person is the only person who knows how to do something in your club. Everybody should have a buddy who can step in and take over if necessary, whatever the role is. And that's part of giving every member an important role to fulfill. That's how you build connection with your club, your members' connection with their club, by giving them important things, one important role at least, that every member has to do so that they feel really connected to the club. And then of course, you set the example ultimately. And one of the keys there, or always a key for me, was I don't ask anybody to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So that's part of setting the example with that. All right. So let's just go on. Let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty of the roles of the president. Yes, you are the CEO of your club. All right. So in that respect, you control when and where the meetings are. That's part of your responsibility, ultimately, to make sure that that happens. Your club probably has a regular schedule of meetings. As we've learned in COVID, that has really been affected. So as club president this year, I'm sure many of you are struggling to figure out how to hold your regular meetings, where to hold your regular meetings, and what format. I'll just put in a quick plug for those of you who are on. The Zoom platform that we're using here is open to all the clubs in the district. So if your club wants to try a Zoom meeting, just call me. I'm the gatekeeper, so to speak, of this for right now. And it's going to be first come, first serve at this point. If somebody requests their club to have a meeting by Zoom, I'll work with the club on getting that set up and moving through the meeting. So that's we're playing with that as we go along and trying to decide if we need any more resources or not for that. But again, your job is to make sure that the schedule is kept. You're responsible to cancel a meeting if weather or some reason, or if there's another reason, you know, the place that you eat can't accommodate you, or some emergency comes up. You control that. So you have your regular meetings. Your board of directors meetings may or may not be scheduled regularly. If not, you decide when they need to be had. For the most part, of course, there are circumstances where a certain number of members can call for a meeting, and then you're obligated to do that, and then call special meetings also. You're also responsible for appointing committees, both the chairperson and the members of the committees that you have in your club. I know we vary widely from club to club as to what those committees are and what they do, because each of our clubs is unique, which I think is one of the great things about Lions. We have a lot of flexibility in how we run our clubs. But we're going to talk a little bit more about those committees later on in the presentation. It is important that you think about who is on the committee. You know, you need a good leader. This is a chairperson, but the other members, you know, think long term. Put members on there who, you know, have an interest in that area, and who, you know, at least one person who has the potential to step up as the chairperson when the current chairperson is ready to relinquish those duties. We're going to talk about elections later in more detail, but that's part of your responsibility to make sure that you set up the people who are going, or the election process, a nominating committee and whatnot, and the schedule for when the elections are going to be held. Cabinet meetings and zone meetings. I really want to encourage you to attend both of these, especially your zone meetings. Each of your clubs is part of a zone, and hopefully by now you already know who you do know who your zone chairperson is. If you don't know who your zone chairperson is, let me know. I'll let you know. If you haven't gotten a directory yet, hopefully you'll get one soon, but I think that an electronic version got mailed out to you, and the zone chairs are all listed in there, and there's also a listing of the zones and which clubs are in which zones. So these meetings are really important, because one of your roles is to communicate, to keep the communication flowing up and down from, you know, both international, the state, the district, to your club, and also the other way for you to let people know what's happening in your club and what your concerns are and what your needs are, to let the zone chair know, and your zone chair take it up to the district. At the zone level, we meet every month in some way, shape, or form, or almost every month. And that's part of what we discuss is what can we provide for our clubs that will make them more effective? You know, what kinds of membership ideas can we come up with? What kinds of leadership? These 3 seminars that we had this month came out of our meetings at the zone and talking with the zone chairs about what do our members need as far as training. So, you know, it's really important for you to communicate that information, and then also just to be aware of what's going on, so that you can communicate it back to your club and get ideas from other clubs. We had a zone meeting here a couple weeks ago. Liz, you were there. Shirley, you were at our zone meeting. And, you know, it's just interesting to hear what the other clubs are doing and how that might be broadened. And, you know, maybe you see an opportunity where you could work with another club on a project instead of just trying to do everything yourself with your club. You know, or maybe the whole zone wants to band together and try to do something that one club, you know, just doesn't have the resources to do. So it's a great opportunity to start to work with Lions at different levels. When you're at that zone meeting, you're usually asked to give a report of some kind, just to help the clubs. And so that's part of the sharing that you have. I just want to remind you that you are the CEO, but you're not you're not the dictator of the club, you know. It's still democracy, not a dictatorship. All right, so your power is not absolute. You know, you have that authority because the club gave it to you. They voted you in as the club president. All right. The Constitution and bylaws, your club constitution and bylaws. Did you know you have a club constitution and bylaws? Can you find it? Do you know where it is? If you do, that's great. I'm guessing a lot of you don't necessarily. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But that's where the authority from the organization comes to have a president and spells out the duties, right? As well as in the international constitution and bylaws. And really all of this flows from the international constitution and bylaws. The club constitution is a derivative of the international constitution and bylaws. So nothing in your club bylaws and constitution can contradict what's in the international constitution and bylaws. What's nice is Lions Club International makes it pretty easy. They publish standard form for all different levels of the organization, from the international down to the multiple district, down to districts, down to clubs, and they're all in alignment. And so all we have to do is tweak them a little bit to make them specific to our clubs. All right, and then of course your board of directors holds you accountable for what you do. They, as the board of directors, can overturn any decision that you make. So that's where, again, you don't have absolute power to do as you want and expect that people will automatically abide. You have to make wise decisions and know that your board of directors at any point can reverse a decision that you've made. All right. I said we would talk a little bit about the committees also. Wait a second, clubs, oh, I'm sorry. This isn't the committee section, it's the board of directors. So that's a good transition here. Just to make sure you understand that, your board is made up of your club officers, lion tamer, if you have one, tail twister, if you have one. I would like to put in a plug for the tail twister, and to give that person, guide that person to some resources to keep some levity in your club, and you know, somebody who's very outgoing, somebody who's somewhat creative, you know, they can bring an awful lot to your meetings to make your meetings more enjoyable for your members. I think most of our clubs have those positions. Lion tamer, of course, is sort of your property person, takes care of things. Your club automatically has an LCIF coordinator in your immediate past president. Safety officer is optional, but again, if you have enough members, and especially if you have somebody who might be involved in some form of safety training, that's a really good responsibility to give somebody. And you know, we talked about giving everybody an important role. That's one that somebody could take on, and it doesn't take a whole lot except for just an awareness and watching. So when you're at one of your, say, a fundraising event that you're doing, that person can be looking for potential safety issues. You know, maybe, you know, I don't know, like we have a restaurant that we run at the South Mountain Fairgrounds. So a safety officer would be a really good person to have to know if we set up any dangerous conditions where we have like equipment placed, or, you know, we've got cracks in the floor, or do they need to be repaired because they're trip hazards or things like that. That's a great way for your safety officer to work. Another role a safety officer could play is to work with your local emergency management team. Every municipality is supposed to have a designated point person for emergency management. So your club safety officer could be a liaison to your municipality emergency management person and reach out to them to let them know what resources your club could provide in terms of maybe how your members could assist in an emergency situation, or how you could access some support and funding from Lions International if it was a larger disaster kind of thing. Those are the kinds of things that a safety officer could do, and they could work with our district safety person also, or emergency. Lisa, what do we call that person? That's a fairly new position. The emergency. It's not emergency. It's
Disaster relief.
Disaster relief, yes, the coordinator. Most of our clubs don't have, in fact, I don't know if any of our clubs have a branch at this point, but branch clubs are kind of like offshoots of your regular club, a small group that has a special interest perhaps, but they're not large enough to be their own club, something you might want to initiate as a president. Suppose you have a group that, you keep hearing they can't meet in the evenings, they've got family responsibilities. Well, maybe they would be willing to meet over lunch, or maybe they would be willing to do breakfast meetings or something like that. Or maybe there's a real particular interest, like in, I'm just speaking from what I know here in our zone. My club or Liz's club, we could probably offer like a teacher branch that might just be focused on supporting the school, and be a way to recruit some additional members because their focus would be on what they could do to support the schools. So that would be an idea of a branch club, but it wouldn't be, you might not have 20 people to get an actual club started. They would be part of your club, but they would kind of have their own organizational structure and meet on their own. Right? And then each of your clubs probably has directors. I don't know how many. That's up to your club to decide how many directors you have, but you probably know that. Half of them, a director, unlike the other elected offices, a director is elected for a 2-year term. And my phone is ringing, so hopefully that's not a person, or not I hope it's a person. I hope it's not a problem. So the elected directors serve for 2 years, and that's a little tricky to keep track of, but your secretary will handle that. And some of your chairpersons, you may choose to be elected because of the importance of that role. The chairpersons are typically appointed. So just basically all of your directors consist of people who were elected to their offices. All right, now, just to further, when we said the officers, we mean the president, the immediate past president, who I said was the LCIF credit, vice president, secretary, treasurer. These next three, the service chairperson, marketing chairperson, and membership chairperson. A lot of our clubs are kind of small, and it's hard to fill all of these roles. So I'm suggesting that you may, in your club, individual club decision, so that you have these positions covered, you may want to use your vice presidents as people to cover these positions. Now, I think I mentioned earlier that one of your vice presidents is supposed to head up leadership. So, if you're lucky enough to have 3 vice presidents, one of them's already taken. So, maybe one of the vice presidents can serve one of these three roles. But the International Association is encouraging every club to have a service chairperson, a marketing chairperson, and a membership chairperson, if possible. That's in the bylaws of the standard club bylaws. So we should be working to try to fulfill that. Although I will admit that not every club has that in place. Your board of director duties, I think most of you are familiar with this because you're experienced, but they should be reviewing and all the new business comes forward. I think one of the clubs, because we tend to be informal in our clubs. So, new business, we're sitting around our meeting, we're just having our meeting, and somebody says, hey, I think we ought to do this. And everybody's, yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Well, sometimes that should maybe take a little bit more thought as to whether you take on a new project or a new fundraiser or something like that. Try to be on your toes there. If an idea comes up, say, okay, we'll take that to the board, or, we'll have the such and such committee take a look at that, and then we'll report back at the next meeting. So just so you give a little bit of space to think through things and make sure. Same thing with policies. And again, I know a lot of our clubs, and my club's included in this, we don't have a lot of stuff formalized. We go on tradition. But then after a while we find, well, where was that ever decided, or how did that ever come into being? And when we don't know, and then new people, and the people who made the decisions are gone. So that's one of my vision when we talk about vision, I'm president of my club this year. One of my visions is to get some stuff down on paper as to how our club operates, so that we have a little bit more continuity and people know what they're doing. Of course, improving expenditures and arranging for an audit. I think I got that a little bit later as far as the audit, but an audit is important, even if it's, not a paid for audit, but just, a separate group of members who take the checkbook, the bank records or whatever, and just reconcile everything, make sure everything was done properly. Here's something I think a lot of our clubs overlook at the beginning of the year, which is approving their financial institution and bonding and providing bonding for their treasurer. It's a protection for your club, just like the audit is. Financial institution, that is kind of formality, but at least the club says, yeah, we're good with that bank. We'll keep using them. And then as far as the bonding goes, the bonding is just protection for both your club and the person who's holding the office, but your treasurer should definitely be bonded. So heaven forbid your club, your treasurer fritters away some money or does something stupid, your club's protected from that. All right. I think most of you are aware that we have 2 separate accounts. You should be running, if not 2 actual different checkbooks, 2 ledgers at the very least, but you really should have 2 different checkbooks so that you keep your administrative money separate from your activity money. And then, as I mentioned before, the board can modify or overrule or stop any officer action that was taken unilaterally. Finally, once the board has made a decision, they should support the decision of the board. That's you come to a consensus and you agree and you walk out together unified as your board of directors. All right. As far as the vice president, these are pretty much standard for the vice president. I just put a note here that ideally that they have served in other roles before they get in that presidential line. It's certainly not ideal for a person to be a new member and 6 months after joining, there has to be the 3rd vice president or the 2nd vice president. Give them a chance to acclimate, to become familiar with the club, familiar with the members. When we get into committees, we're going to talk just briefly about you got to select people based on their strengths and weaknesses, and that's part of your role as president. So if a person doesn't know the people, it's going to be hard to do that. So in general, of course, the vice president has to know the president's role and duties because they may have to step in at any time, and eventually they're going to be president if the system works. As president, you can give your vice president committee, like a group of committees to oversee and manage so that you're not overlooking or functioning with everything, dealing with everything. They can help those committee chairs set their goals for the year. They can help develop job descriptions for the committees. And again, that's part of what I was talking about in my vision. I'd like to see every committee of our committees just have something on paper as to what they do in different roles within the club. As I said, our club runs a restaurant at the South Mountain Fairgrounds, and one of my responsibilities is to order all the supplies and the food when we have an event. And I also then kind of manage the kitchen during the events. And so I have based actually when I was district governor, because of not being able to be there as much, I just made a checklist of things to do, especially like the day of the event, apple harvest. For any of you who have been to that festival, it's crazy. So, a timeline of what needs to be done so that heaven forbid something happens to me or I can't be there, somebody else can pick that up and look at it and has an idea of what needs to be done. And same thing, I've put a timeline like for ordering. Those kinds of things are really important to keep your club from, faltering if a key person goes down for some reason. Help the chairpersons with their meeting management. Again, that's part of the building your leadership skills. Resource person, to ask questions to, and then they can be ex officio. They're not going to vote necessarily with the committee, but they can be at the meetings and serve as an advisor, sort of speak, and report on behalf of the committees at different meetings. I pulled this graphic from the LCI website, and I'll be sending this out to you in a follow-up email. But this is based on the standard club bylaws, and it's sort of like the ideal structure of a club, like an organizational flow chart for a club. And it summarizes all these positions that I just talked about. I think it's a good graphic, and it's something that you could use as a starting point for your club, compare it to how your club is right now. You can see over under the president, it says Global Action Team Chairperson. We'll talk about the Global Action Team in just a couple minutes when we get to the committees part of this. But the Global Action Team is a relatively new organizational structure that Lions Club has put in place. It's something that we have taken very seriously at the district level to try to keep our focus on the sort of the three pillars of service, leadership, and membership that helps keep our clubs strong and alive, vital, keep them running smoothly on an organizational basis, on an administrative basis. So we'll talk just a little bit more about that when we get further down the road here. All right, so Lisa, if you've got your participants thing, or anybody who has a question or a comment on anything I've gone over so far, I know that's a big piece of information to cover right now, but if anybody has a question or a comment, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. And this is what we called wait time.
Hey, Dennis, this is Ray.
Go ahead, Ray.
The only question I had was, it said, according to what you showed there, it said the board of directors calls for the audit. But according to what I read last night on International, in their prescriptive bylaws, it says the president calls for it through the finance committee, and the finance committee chair, who happens to be the treasurer, arranges it.
Yeah, I guess that, and I don't think that's, I think the board has to see that it gets done, pretty much is what that was indicating. Who actually calls for it or whatever, arranges it. Yeah, that is part of your duty to make sure it happens too. As president, bring it to the board, assign, you as president, assign the audit committee, but the board of directors should, if they don't see an audit report, they should probably be asking, where's the audit? Or, when are we going to do our audit, or that kind of thing. So yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you there. And and I'm certainly trusting you if you saw it in the bylaws or whatever. Well,
they have their. I'm in the process of redoing our Carlisle bylaws because they haven't been done in a long, long time. And I noticed in their pre-scripted from International, it was talking about that, and the fact that the finance committee is automatically the treasurer, chair.
The treasurer's the head of the finance committee.
Yeah. So, all right, thanks.
Sure.
The audit should be done when?
The audit should be done at the end of the fiscal year, usually sometime in July. Once the treasurer can kind of determine the timeline on that, when they have everything reconciled for the year, from like the Lions year goes July 1st through June 30th, the financial year. So once we hit June 30th, after June 30th, the treasurer may have some outstanding checks that haven't been cleared, or have some bills to pay that were or expenses to pay that were incurred in the previous year. So once they have all those taken care of, then they'll have the things ready for the audit committee. So usually in July or August, you should have the audit done and report back to the club.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, let's talk a little bit about planning. this is going to be for vice presidents, right? Before your term begins. Yeah, but maybe there'll be some things that'll be, oh yeah, maybe I better take care of that here. So motivations and needs, that's going to get into with your committee members, you know, giving people roles that they're going to enjoy, and you know, understanding what makes your members want to turn out for something or participate, or what will move them to attend meetings or become more active or take on responsibilities. Again, if you have a person who's jumping into the presidential rotation after they've been a member for 6 months, it's going to be hard for them to know some of that with your membership unless you have a very small membership. So I do encourage you to, you know, try to give your newer members some lower level exposure before you get them into the presidential role. This is a really handy book, and I'm going to send this out to you so you don't have to actually find it. But the President's Vice President, it's got all the information in, you know, most of the information I'm talking about, and it's laid out a little bit differently as far as the organization of it, but it's a really good tool. And what's really nice about it is that it has hyperlinks in it. So when it talks about, you know, the Constitution and bylaws, that's linked, and you can go click on it and you can bring up your Constitution and bylaws, or if it has other things. So I'm going to send that to you after the when I send out some follow-up things after the seminar. Highly encourage you to look through it and use it.
Dennis,
Yeah.
I don't know who's not muted, but we're getting some feedback. If we can have all but you mute, it would really be appreciated.
Okay. Lisa, can you look at that for me and see?
It looks like the only one that's not unmuted, or that's muted, is Liz.
It is muted.
Everybody else is muted.
Okay. All right. I know you're having a little trouble with that, Liz, too, with yours. So.
Yeah, I am, and I don't know how to fix it.
Probably just the mute. You're on your phone. Is that correct?
Well, let's see.
I don't know if you can do the, like you mute regular mute thing or not. Like how you would mute a call, a mute button. You would probably have to bring up your keyboard. Yeah. All right. We'll just ask you to be quiet, to sit real still. Okay. Moving on here with the planning, you know, especially if you're a first vice president right now, or take this back to your first vice president, but get them to go to some different things outside of your club. And I don't have in here, but best thing is take them to your zone meeting with you, especially the ones in the spring, so they see a little bit of what goes on and they get introduced to some of the other people in the club. But the district convention is great to go to. If you can go to the multiple district convention, that's great if we have it. You know, again, these things are all up in the air still for this coming year. Unfortunately, we didn't have them last spring to go to. But other meetings, the district cabinet meetings, get them involved in going to things so they can see a little bit of what's going on outside. They meet some people and they're not uncomfortable going to these things. And then take advantage of the club officer trainings that are offered both online and here within our district. But when we get to the resources section, I'm going to show you some other training things that are available. There is really a wealth of training kinds of things. And a lot of these things are very useful, not just with your Lions Club, but outside of your Lions Club. They have broad implications. And then, as we mentioned, being familiar with the club constitution and bylaws. The district constitution and bylaws, maybe not so much. That's not as important, but that's on the district website if you want to see that. Our district uses the standard district constitution and bylaws, but and then we have some policies that further explain aspects of that. But the club constitution and bylaws, I'm going to send that to you as well. Notice it has the fiscal year down there on the graphic that it's 1920. So far, I have not seen a revision come out for 2021, and it might not because there may not have been changes. without having the International Convention. Usually changes to the Constitution and bylaws occur through votes at the International Convention. So I don't know if they're going to update these this year or not, but typically the Constitution and bylaws are updated every year. So come July, end of July, beginning of August, you should look to update this document with the newest edition and make sure that they're up to date, because this is basically the guide for your club, and you have to be aware if anything has changed so that you can modify your own club procedures and not be in conflict with the standard club constitution and bylaws. All right. Makes sense to start early. So again, your first vice presidents, you kind of know who's going to be in the queue or whatever, but start getting ready early by be polite as a first vice president. Say to your president, is it okay if I start working on my committees and things like that? Just do that, and try to meet with your officers, people are going to be in the roles. Have an organizational meeting, maybe near the end of June, beginning of July. Again, everybody's schedules work differently, but this is where you can lay out your vision or what your goals are as a club president for the year. Get your committees in place, both the members and the chairs. It's always nice when we had talked about the mentoring program, if every president has sort of a go-to person. We do this with the district governors, and it just kind of evolves naturally. It's either the person who was just in office, or as you're going through as vice president or whatever, you have a trusted club member who served as president that you really respect their advice or like the way they ran the club when they were president. Just use them as a resource person. And again, try to be ready to hit the ground running on July 1st. That section wasn't quite as long. Any questions or comments on that information? Bueller? Anybody?
Dennis?
Yeah.
Dennis?
Go ahead.
Okay. Was there a place online that had like the duties of different committees? Seems to me a couple years ago I saw that, but I don't know where to look.
Some of the duties are spelled out in the Constitution and bylaws, and then that handbook that I have, that I'll be sending you, that will have more information too. But it's only going to basically have for the standing committees, the ones that are mentioned in the Constitution and bylaws. Another resource that your club might have, or probably should have, but it's a few years ago, the district bought for every club a handbook, a club handbook that's put out by the Lions University, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But that has a lot of good information in it also. You might be able to track that down as a handbook.
Or not?
Say that again, Liz.
Is it online?
That handbook is not online. Lisa, I don't think there was a electronic version of that handbook, was there?
No.
No. Okay. But the other one that I showed the picture of on here, that's electronic, and I'll be sending that to you. So and it may be able to guide you to some other things for your committees. How are we doing time-wise, Lisa?
It's 8 o'clock.
Okay, I think we're in good shape. All right, talk about your meetings a little bit. All right, as we said, you're the one who issues the call for them. We recommend preparing an agenda and working with the secretary to do that. Now, every club has its traditions. Sometimes secretaries think that is their responsibility, but they're going to have maybe a little bit more experience with it than you do as president. But an agenda is really important. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But work with your secretary to make sure that things are covered. You're going to preside over the meetings, and it's always good to look at the minutes that you're going to approve before they actually get distributed out to the general membership. You may see some things in there. It's always just a good practice to work with your secretary, for you and the secretary to go over the minutes, make sure you both think they're accurate, and then send them out to the general membership to look at before you have the formal approval at your meeting. Why is an agenda important? Well, it kind of keeps you on track and helps you run an efficient meeting. Helps your meetings be productive and orderly. You know, you don't want to miss stuff, you know, or you don't want to waste time trying to remember what it is you have to cover, you know, and it gives you a definite order of things to do. Helps keep the members informed, especially if you distribute the agenda to them ahead of time. They know what to be maybe prepared to discuss, or what things are going to be covered at the meeting. You know, again, you don't overlook stuff. It's so easy to forget when you're in the middle of it. That's why we do PowerPoints, isn't it? Or else I'd forget half the things I wanted to tell you. So have your agendas there so things don't get overlooked. When you prepare your agenda, again, you work with your secretary, but you also want to be, you know, in contact with your vice presidents and committee chairs if they have information to share, or needs to be, or if they need to be on the agenda for anything. Review the past meeting minutes. Again, we talked about that, need for that. And then send those out prior to the meeting so people can review them, and you don't have to spend time reading the minutes at your meeting. You know, talk about making meetings boring. Nothing worse than listening to a page of the minutes being read. So send them out, and then all you have to do is say, anybody see anything need to be corrected? And you can move on. So you can have copies at the meeting too, a couple copies. I usually print 4 or 5 copies and just lay them on the tables when we have in-person meetings, so people have them if they hadn't had a chance to look at them. These are just a couple of samples for agendas. If you're having a program, like you're having a guest speaker or something like that, of some kind of program, you know, you want to do your call to order. And again, I should qualify this and say, there's no necessary standard way that has to be done. There's nothing that's prescripted for this. So this is just suggestions, you know, and sort of tradition. And I think most of you are familiar with that. But even in the opening exercises, some clubs sing, some clubs don't sing. Some clubs tell jokes, some don't. Most of them do the pledge. Most of them do an invocation of some kind, but there's nothing that says you have to do that, other than maybe just ring the bell if you want to get the meeting started. You know, some people like to do the Lions toast, or some clubs like to do that at every meeting. That's part of their tradition. That's just part of your club tradition. But you want to open and welcome the guests or welcome your members, and if you have guests, give them a brief introduction, not the whole thing. If you're having a meal at the meeting, you know, you want to get that over with. Then go right into your program. Don't make your guests sit, your guests and your speaker or whatever, they don't have to sit through your business meeting. Once they get through with their portion of the program, if they want to stick around, fine. If not, give them permission to take off. And then you can go into your business meeting. And I would recommend that this business meeting be as brief as possible if you're having a program meeting. You know, try to limit the amount of business there. If you need a board meeting, then call that separate. But the business meeting at the main meeting, you know, you of course approve the minutes, get the reports of the officers and committees as needed, but only if it's really necessary. You do want to include a treasurer's report here and make sure that the treasurer goes over their deposits and expenditures and what the balances are. Then any announcements or communications that need to be shared. If you've got old business to go over, new business, and then adjournment. Try to keep it fairly quick and simple, especially again a program meeting, because nobody wants to sit at a Lions Club meeting for 2.5 or 3 hours. You know, people just don't have that patience. An hour and a half is probably, you know, if you keep it to that or under, that's going to be much better. Now, if you're going to just have a business meeting at your or a board meeting, again, you're going to call it to order. You and the vice presidents may want remarks. You do the minutes, the reports again, the treasurer. Go in with your unfinished business, your new business, and your adjournment. So that's sort of the general outline for the meetings. Thought I would just share with you quick. Here was the, hang on a second. Yeah, these were the things in my agenda of my last meeting. But I think yeah, that's what I wanted. That's what it actually looked like when I put my last agenda together. And this is kind of a template for my meetings so that I don't forget anything. When I actually print the agenda for the people, I'll take different things out there. If I know, if I know that something doesn't need to be addressed, I will take it out. But this way I keep track of things. And a reminder for for example, the secretary, I want them to just, in addition to the minutes of the meeting, I want them, if there's any membership updates or we need to know about so-and-so's in the hospital or so-and-so, had a new granddaughter born or something like that. Any information about members that we can do there. Kind of report what hours they're putting in and reporting to LCI or other activities that they're reporting. What did they do in their role as secretary between the last meeting and this meeting? Again, I mentioned with the treasurer's report, just try to keep that as simple as possible. And again, the treasurer could print something out and have that on the table for people to look at so that they don't have to spend a lot of time discussing it. And then what I went to is under kind of like the committee reports or whatever, I broke it down into the service projects and the fundraising projects. And service projects, those are kind of the service initiatives of our club. And those just gives an opportunity then for each committee chair under there to provide an update if they need to, or if there's nothing going on, they can say nothing to report. And then I put other ideas there just in case somebody has a special need that came up or something they want to suggest. And then that's something that could be referred to the board. Likewise with the fundraising projects, those are the things that we have going on this year that we'll need to keep up to date with. The cattle shows are gone. They've passed by. We can't have the Apple Harvest Festival, so we're going to do a soup sale. So that's how we did that. And then the old business, that was just an item that we needed to talk and clarify what we were going to do because we found out we couldn't meet at our regular meeting location. And we had talked about our meetings at the other ones, so that came under old business. And on new business, I needed a membership chair and I needed somebody to take over the zone social or to help organize the zone social, which our club is in charge of this year. And then different announcements that needed to be made. And I listed them there so that I remembered what I wanted to do. So that's just an idea. You can set it up the way you want, but I think those have the essential elements in it. When you're running your meeting, parliamentary procedure sounds pretty formal, but basically you just have some rules for the meeting, and just so you know how you're going to conduct business. If you want to get into this, you can learn about different kinds of motions and the rules for debates and how to vote and that kind of stuff. Most of our clubs aren't that formal. At the higher levels of the organization, that's important. But if you want to look at it, feel free to go to Robert's Rules of Order. I do have this linked. I think if you click on that when you have what you're looking at now, I sent you, if you have that up on your computer and click on that, it'll give you a link that takes you there. But that is something you have to purchase. It's not available for free, I don't believe. Just a suggestion I have for you, to create a binder to have at your meetings, and then you have this reference. You can keep your agendas, have your most recent one on top, but keep the past ones so that you can keep referring to them and you have them all collected together. Same with the minutes. Have a section for the previous meeting minutes. You can always have that then as a reference to go back to if you need to remember who made a motion or who did this or that. Just a note there too. I came across, and I wish I would have sent it out or I wish I would have saved it because I couldn't find it today. But a motion log, I thought was a pretty cool idea, and the secretary could keep this, and it's just a listing of the formal actions that the club has taken. So it's just what the motion was, who made it, when was it approved, what the date was it was approved or whatever. And it's a real nice summary. If you go back, like if you have one log for each year, it's really easy to go back and see what the actions were without having to read through all of the minutes of your meetings to go through. So I thought that was a pretty clever idea, and it wouldn't be hard to set up as a as a table or something like that in your by your secretary to keep a table or a chart, or you could even do it in a spreadsheet or whatever. It just depends what they're comfortable using. Keep a list of your officers and your committees, so you can have that as a reference. Calendar or list of meeting dates is always there. When's our next meeting, or when's the zone social, or when's this or that, when's the next zone meeting. It's really nice to have that list of dates or calendar for events. So you can do that in calendar format. You could do it in a listing, whatever works for you. Print out that Constitution and bylaws, keep that in the back. That's just nice to have. And this is a binder then, if you want to do the Robert's Rules of Order, you can. I think there's some brief versions of that you might be able to print out. It wouldn't be like a whole book. Keep your district directory with you. This binder, to me, is something that you could transfer president to president to president to president, and just needs to be updated. And maybe the outgoing president's responsible for putting the new information in, or something like that. You can set that up to club, but I think it's pretty handy, a pretty handy thing to have available at your meetings. Another quick break for questions or comments. We're all good? All right. Committees.
Dan has his hand up.
Who does? They'll have to unmute themselves. Dan, unmute.
Yes, I have unmuted myself. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
How do you decide what you're going to do in your business part of your meeting as opposed to what you're taking to your board of directors meeting? How do you make those decisions?
My thought there is that the business part of your regular meeting is more informational, just to share information, what's going on, announcements, updates, that kind of thing. The board meeting should be decision-making in terms of, are we going to take on this new project? Are we going to give this donation? Are we going to give money to this? Are we going to fulfill this request? That kind of thing. So I know we've had in our meetings at times where somebody comes up and says, well, I read in the paper that so-and-so's house burned down and they need money, and we'll end up, and somebody will say, I make a motion that we give them $500. And it's like, well, wait. Okay. You're recommending that we do that. We will take that to the board as opposed to doing a vote right then and there, so the board has time to look and see what the financial situation, instead of getting into a big, long discussion. So that's kind of a basic guide for me. Now, sometimes I think the board may want to say on certain decisions, for example, if you want to implement a new fundraising project, maybe the board wants to say, we endorse this, but we need the support we need to make sure that the club's behind us, and then they say, put it up to the whole club for a vote. So does that help, Dan?
Yes, great. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
How many clubs have longer than 1 year terms for their president or other positions? Are there any that are even longer than that?
I know we have some clubs that have 2-year. Now, the people who are on right now, I don't know. Lisa, take a look for hands and see if your club, Dan, you'll have to put your hand down, or maybe you can wave if you have or yeah, I like that, Ray. You showed me one. I assume one meant 1 year, right? So if you're a 1-year term, put up one finger. Be careful which finger you use, please. And if you are a 2-year term, put up 2 fingers. And I don't know if you probably have to scroll somehow to see. I can't do that with mine right now in the mode I'm in. But so I think most of our clubs are 1-year terms, but there are several clubs, maybe a handful, Lisa, that are 2-year terms.
Right.
Technically, you should still hold your election and re-vote them in for the 2nd year. But it's as far as I know, it's not against the bylaws. Doesn't say it has to be a different person. When it comes to district governors, it does have to be a different person, or it's supposed to be a different person.
Yeah,
Each year.
I had the first vice president. I moved up from second to third, and there was some discussion before that 1 year just doesn't give you time to kind of get up to snuff, and so this is our first year trying 2nd-year term, so
Yeah.
vice president again this year, which works out for me.
I think it has some merit to it. In fact, I've initiated that with our club to think about, do we want to go and not have 3 vice presidents, just have a president and vice president who each serve a 2-year term. And, I think it has some merit. It's worth consideration. I mean, if you do it that way, it ends up you've got responsibilities for 4 years till you get through your term. So.
Yeah, so thank you.
You bet. Anybody else? Okay. All right. As far as committees, again, you appoint these folks to committees, and you assign the chairs. Again, involve your vice presidents in that process so they know your thinking, and you can do a little bit of continuity. They don't have to reinvent the wheel, and maybe there's some strategy there as to how that's going to work. And I would say be careful. I know this can be really tricky politically, but within your club, but be careful about committee chairs who serve forever. It's kind of like at the district level, if we have a zone chair who's in there for 10 years, that really just stifles an opportunity for other people to move into leadership roles and move up beyond or whatever. And I know we have people, and it's my club just as well as your club. You have the chicken barbecue person, and they have it down to a science, and they've done it for the last 20 years. And, maybe try to help them understand, to at least share their knowledge with a vice chair and assistant chair, or be willing to, or maybe find something else and say, hey, we could really use you here, but I know you're really involved with the chicken barbecue. How about letting so-and-so work with the chicken barbecue this year, and you take on this new assignment, or this role where I need you, or something like that. It's a consideration. I'm not saying you need to do that or whatever, because I know the politics of that can you don't want to offend your people either. So, but anyways, again, group your committees to your vice presidents if you have that luxury. In my case, you saw my agenda. I had the service projects and the fundraising. So maybe one of my vice presidents could oversee the service piece committees, and the other the fundraising committees. That way, you aren't trying to keep tabs on everybody and the only one doing that. Match the interest and skills. I had a Lion from down in Stewartstown contact me and ask if there was an interest survey, that Lions Club had any kind of an interest survey. And I couldn't find one, but I thought it was a really good idea. So I think he's working on putting together something he can give to his members to find out better, what aspects of what the club's involved in are they interested in? or, you know, are there things that they're not involved in that people have an interest in that maybe they would pick up a new service project of some kind. So I thought that was a great idea. Again, keep your committees fresh, keep bringing your new people, always assign your new members to a responsibility or a committee or something to get involved with. Don't let them just sit out there. And we talked about the descriptions or duties or that kind of thing. Get some stuff down in writing. This would be a hard sell in ours to have committees keep formal records like minutes and that kind of thing. So, but I would be happy if they could at least do an outline of what their committee does or what the duties are for each thing. And then give them time to report at your meetings. Keep the communication flowing. Ideally, if you can attend a committee meeting. Now, I know, again, our clubs are small. Committees don't like meet regularly outside of the club or whatever. They often get together. But maybe as part of a club meeting or a business, if you don't have a program, maybe you want to give 15 minutes of a meeting time after the meal, and the business is for the committees to meet, especially in your organizational times in July or August. If you don't have a lot going on, use a meeting for your clubs to get organized for the year or to set out their goals or what they want to do or that kind of thing. That helps. But if you can get to one of their meetings or monitor that, it keeps you in the loop and what's going on. It also keeps your committee focused, the committees focused if they are meeting and they know that you're keeping tabs on what's going on. So it also might require you to follow up in some way and make sure to do that motivating and prompting and encouraging to keep getting things done. So the committees that are required by your constitution and bylaws, and I mentioned this earlier, the Global Action Team, GAT, we talk about that and we throw that around at the district level a lot. But technically, and from the international's understanding or expectation, you are the chairperson of the Global Action Team. All right, and the Global Action Team, I'll go back here a second, I'm sorry. The Global Action Team consists of the service chairperson, the membership chairperson, and the leadership chairperson, as well as yourself. And then at the district level, it's also the zone chairs. So really, there's a whole bunch of overlap between that and your board of directors. But the idea here is to maintain a focus on service, membership, and leadership. You know, those are kind of the pillars for the strength of your club. If you've got good service projects and somebody who's overseeing those service projects, and you know your club is engaged in a lot of service, and I don't mean just check writing, you know, I mean performing service. If you have somebody who's really focused on membership and not just recruiting new members, although that's critically important, but also member satisfaction, making sure members are happy. That's really, that contributes to the health of your club. And then if you have somebody who's focused on developing the leadership skills so that you constantly have a pool of people who can run your committees, lead your projects, can serve in offices, that's critical. And I think you can see how those marry together pretty well. Your members are going to have a higher level of satisfaction if they know they're doing worthwhile work that's helping people through the service. And if you have good service projects, they require people with good leadership skills. So these things interact, and that's the whole model that the organization has put together, and the thought process that they've had with that is to integrate these things, each doing its own role, but there's an overlap. So if you can think of like intersecting concentric circles, is that the right word to use? I don't know. Intersecting circles, a Venn diagram, right? For those of you who are in education, a Venn diagram where the circles overlap. They have some of their own responsibilities, but they also have overlapping things. So that's the Global Action Team. Formally or informally, you know, it's good to know. Check your constitution and bylaws for that, but the constitution and bylaws should be its own committee. Again, somebody in your club who is pretty well versed in constitution bylaws, because that, as the president, it's hard to get real familiar with that just in a 1-year term. So somebody who's kind of oriented that way to be the chairperson, and maybe another line or two to be. You really probably don't need to have more than maybe 2 or 3 people on that committee, but those people can make sure that they're knowledgeable about it, and then they also check every year to make sure what the changes were and that your club's in compliance with those changes and aware of those changes. We mentioned earlier that the finance committee is chaired by the club treasurer, and they should be responsible. That committee would prepare the budget, work on the budget and bring it forward for approval. And they would also then, they could either oversee the audit, or the people in that finance committee outside of the treasurer could possibly be the audit committee for your club too. So, but they could facilitate the audit. Membership committee to work with the chairperson. It's always great to have some kind of a membership initiative every year. Marketing and communications is one that's in the bylaws, and one that I think many of our clubs have ignored. Ours has, other than maybe on the communications side, that we have Facebook page, and a lot of clubs are developing Facebook pages, but social media communications, that kind of thing, that all goes into the marketing. Maybe we could do a better job of publicizing within our communities what our clubs do and making them aware that a Lions Club exists in their community, and how the community benefits from your club being in there. Information technology, that's probably going to be mostly your website, but somebody who has the technical skills to get those media platforms up and running. And then again, a leadership committee, that's your first vice president chairing that, somebody to encourage and provide training to your members on their responsibilities, as well as encourage people to go to that. That person should also be aware of what's being offered outside of your club, and directing people to those resources. Those were in the Constitution bylaws. Now, in your club, you probably have specific ones. And so for us, we have our service committees, or the peace poster, we do a road cleanup, we distribute fruit baskets, we do decorations, we do vision screenings, we sponsor a Leo club, fundraising. We have, as I mentioned, the restaurant at the fairgrounds that we run. That's one of our big ones. And we've been running wine bingo twice a year. Those are our 2 main sources of revenue for our club. So, organizing committees and chair people around those things is going to be different for every club, but those would probably be the 2 big categories that you would have for your committees, other than some administrative kinds of things. So we always assign a committee to plan our charter night and a holiday dinner. That's kind of, those are the main administrative types of committees that we have. Excuse me. And then you may need a special committee from time to time. It's not one that's every year appointed. So I mentioned earlier that this year our club's responsible for the zone social. Not every zone handles things the same way, but in our zone, we rotate. Each club takes a turn sponsoring, or sort of sponsoring and planning the zone social. So they decide where it's going to be held, what the program's going to be, what kind of entertainment, or what we're going to do at the zone social. So we had to appoint a committee this year, but we don't have a zone social committee every year. The audit committee is something that ought to be appointed every year, but it may not be like a standing group. You might have a committee, maybe one of your goals is to do a social outing to promote more just fun and enjoyment with the club. So you might want to appoint a committee to plan a bus trip or something like that. Likewise, a special service project. We all have our ongoing ones, but needs come up from time to time, or maybe you as president have an initiative or something that you're really passionate about, and you want to do something special, have your club do something special. So you may need a committee to help you with that. Nominating committee, we're going to talk about that under elections in a minute, and but that's another committee that needs to be assigned. Questions on committees? Comments? Lisa, where are we at with time?
It's
I have a question.
8:30.
I have a
8:30
question.
now. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, Dennis, I've wondered, the service chair in your club, does the service chair coordinate the work of the service committees?
We have not formalized a service chair in our club. So the answer is no. I think that we would like to be there, and I would like to put a vice president overseeing that responsibility. That would be my way of organizing that, so that it kind of takes care of itself each year. Like every year, the third vice president oversees service, or the second vice president, something like that.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Is that Gary?
Yes, a quick question, and this is probably a little bit off subject, but we're talking about committees here. Under membership committee, I know a lot of people have different ideas about membership, and you can look into the constitutional bylaws of how the membership is supposed to be voted upon and things like that. I was just wondering if there's any presidents or past presidents out there who have ever had a member, a prospective member, want to join the club, and after they go to 3 or 4 meetings and maybe they participate in an event and you vote on them to come into the club, has anybody ever denied membership to anybody because they weren't a good fit for the club? I know that's a strange question.
Not necessarily, because it's an awkward situation, but it's very possible.
I'm asking that question because I've been in the Lions Club for about 8 years, and I've never seen this come up until a certain time. I'm not going to go into details or anything, but if you were to vote on somebody to come into your club and the vote was no, of course, they're usually present. And then I don't know how your club does it, but ours, we vote after the meeting and the board of directors meeting. And I was just wondering, how you go about telling somebody, thank you for applying, but no thank you.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever come across that?
This is Ray Highlands.
Go ahead.
I've been a member for about 40 years and been around the organization for 45 or better. And yes, I've seen several times where the clubs decided that through the investigation of the membership that they were not a good fit. It's not often, but I've seen it a couple times. It used to be worse years ago when they used the white and black balls to vote.
Well, nowadays with the age of social media, I mean, it's pretty easy to find out some history about people. You go on their Facebook page and you see something that you just know is not, part of what you would want in your club or something like that. However, somebody, vouched for this person and brought them to a meeting, things like that. That was the first part of my question, just to see if anybody had ever come across this. And the second part of my question was,
Gary, can I interrupt for just a second?
Sure.
Let me just comment. One way you might avoid that that awkward situation is to not formally put an application in the person's hand until you've seen them in some situations, interacting at meetings or events, and also taking a little bit of time to check their social media background, or it is easy to do to get some background information on folks, to vet them. But do an informal, or have maybe some kind of you could even have a formal procedure set up in your club of things that need to happen before a person is offered an application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm doing in my club, is to standardize our membership process, because, it seems like each member that comes in, sometimes there's a little different way we do each thing, and people have different opinions of how we should do it. A lot of people are like, let's just get them in, sign the check, make them a member, and blah, 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 and we'll worry about anything after the fact. And I'm a little bit different than that. I like to make sure that people are a good fit for community service and things like that. But yeah, I was just kind of curious whether anybody ever had to turn anybody down. I've never seen it since I've been in my club, but it's not saying that couldn't happen.
And your second item?
The second item was, I was just curious, these are all great slides and the PowerPoint presentation is outstanding. I'd just like to know, is this going to be available for me to pull up at any time so I can go back and look at some of these notes?
I can send the actual PowerPoint out to you folks, and we might, Dan, did we put a link on the district page too, didn't we? Or we were working on that. So we're working on that. We might be able to post this on the district website too, but definitely to you folks who were signed up for this, I can send out the actual presentation if you want.
As an email attachment?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, can I reply to Gary's question real quick?
Sure.
Sure.
One of the ways that we bring people into the club is we assign them a kind of a mentor or sponsor. When they go, we have them, they go through our membership application, and then usually they'll have somebody that, brings them in and gives them a little bit of an orientation of what it's about and sits with them at the meeting. And that's usually a pretty good, screen, and, they can kind of guide them in another direction if they don't appear.
Yeah, we have the same thing. We have a sponsor, and they will come to a couple meetings with their sponsor and things like that. It's just in today's world, sometimes you find out, the more time you spend with somebody, the more you find out things about them. Just sometimes you just got to be cautious.
Yeah, we have a lot of older people in our club, and one of the other things is dealing with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a few members that really struggled with it, and we kind of had to work with them,
Okay.
to kind of transition them out of.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there are some membership categories that you could explore in that kind of case too, that you might want to investigate. Membership categories are in the Constitution and bylaws, and you might find a way to handle some of those situations with that. So I do want to be respectful of your time, everybody. And, we advertise this for an hour and a half, but I'm happy to keep going through, continue on. And if you folks, if anybody drops off, you're not going to hurt my feelings or anything like that. Do what you need to do. But if you want, I'm happy to keep going on through what I have. So, all right. The elections are pretty straightforward. I just wanted to review your responsibilities there, that you got to make sure that they comply with the Constitution and bylaws. So you can do that either personally, or you can delegate that responsibility to somebody else. Just make sure that it's an open process and that the deadlines are met. And you can do that. You can find those by looking at your Constitution and bylaws to prepare yourself. In general, it involves assigning a nominating committee. I would recommend you appoint them probably in January. You could do it before, but I would say January at the latest. It might be something you want to do even at the beginning of the year so they know. But appoint that committee, and then that committee recruits your candidates, and hopefully you can get one for each of your elected offices. All right, so they pull them together. So if you appoint them in a January meeting, that gives them about 2 months, because in March they're supposed to then come back and report on who is on who the nominees are. You should make sure that people know that that's going to happen at the whatever meeting you're going to announce the nominees. People should know that 14 days prior to that. So again, when you're making your calendar for the year, you can just designate right on there that our first meeting in March or our second meeting in March is going to be our nominating meeting. And then that way you've got notice out there already from the beginning of the year. So the committee reports who they've recruited for officers. If people aren't happy, or people say, oh, I want to run too, they can make nominations from the floor, and you can increase that. Well, we seem to be in an age where we don't have much competition for officers, at least not in my club. But wouldn't it be great maybe if we got back to that and had people that really wanted to run for office? The election then needs to be held in April. And again, you can put that on the calendar because that has to have 14 days prior to the election. So whether you want to do that at the meeting right after the nominations or you want a meeting in between, I think it makes sense to do the nominating meeting, maybe your second meeting in March, and then your election, your first meeting in April, and that gives you plenty of time to report things. But the notice, when you let people know about the meeting, you're going to want to send that reminder out 14 days in advance. Have the names of the nominees on that so that people know who's up for office. But at the election, and this is an important one, you don't take additional nominations at the election. It's too late then. And you don't have write-ins for positions either, unless there is nobody on the ballot. Okay? If there's nobody on the ballot for a position, you can accept a write-in. But if there are people on the ballot, you cannot accept a write-in on that. And the elections are supposed to be done with written ballots. All right? This is something that has been instituted fairly recently, within like the last 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years, in the bylaws. It changed there, that they're not just recommending, the bylaws say it will be a written secret ballot to prepare. This year we used a yes/no because we only had one person for each office. If you have multiple people, then of course you have to have them select one or more. So there are some more details about that, but all that's spelled out in the Constitution and bylaws. Any questions on that? We're good? All right. Keep the communication going. You know, use a bulletin or newsletter. Attend the zone and district activities, and make sure that your club members are aware of what's going on, when there's zone meetings, when there's district activities going on. Not always just meetings, but also multiple district activities like the Beacon Lodge Appreciation Day. All of our members should go to Beacon Lodge at least once. It's a great place to go. But you know, district events like the convention are important. Your zone might have its zone social. Make sure you keep them involved with that. And then else, the international activities. Every line should go to an international convention at least once. That's, of course, my personal opinion. And keep them up to date with what our foundation is doing. That's kind of the role of your LCIF chair, to stay up to date and know when we've given like to disaster relief. So I'm sure we're going to be sending money down to Galveston and that area, Louisiana, with this hurricane that's coming through now. I'm sure we're going to be providing relief. Let our members know how their contributions are being used. We already talked about minutes of the club meetings. Again, involve your officers and committee chairs in keeping people informed through their reports at the meetings. That's kind of internal communications. Outside of the club, you know, when you can, you might want to delegate somebody else to respond to a request or do something else. You don't have to do all that communicating yourself, but just make sure that it's clear who's going to respond and to what. You know, when's the secretary going to send something out to respond to a request, or does a committee chair do that, or the president or whoever? But do make sure that people keep you informed, especially on requests for assistance, so that you know what the status is, what's been requested, and that it was followed through with. You always want to know what's going on as president. Again, you don't have to do it all, but make sure it gets done. Your communications committee and marketing can help with that. If you've got a strong person, that's going to be great. And it's really good to, of course, have somebody who's really comfortable with social media tools so that they can do regular posts and put stuff up and keep your website up to date. The newspapers I know are falling behind, but we're lucky in our area. We have a daily newspaper, and they do accept things. They have a weekly feature called Faces section, and they publish a lot of our things in that. I know Liz's club, Upper Adams, they do a student of the quarter. They always get pictures in. All the students are recognized with that. If you send it in as a press release, for us, it seems to get in, you know, and we just email to the editor, as a press release and attach pictures or whatever. And, you know, you'll be surprised sometimes what'll get in there. Again, keep your club's website up to date. It's tough when you go in. I went to a website to ask a club where, if we could use their parking, because I'm going to Beacon Lodge Golf Tournament on Saturday. And I wanted some friends that are going with me there. So I checked their website and I got on and I was just about ready to make a contact when I realized that that was as of 2013, the information. So I had to find a different route to contact because it hadn't been updated. So, all right. That's what I have. Communication. Any comments there? All right. Finally, the resources. I'll just go through this real quick because I was going to try to get online, but with the time, I'm not, and I'm not sure I have bandwidth anyways, but the LCI Resource Center is really great. And what I've given you here is just sort of the steps to go through to access that resource center. And so I think I had this on your slides, but this is actually what it looks like. So if you go to lionsclub.org, that's your home page. And then you have to click there on resources. All right. When you click on resources, this is what comes up. And then you want to look for there on the left-hand side, the resource center. You click on that, and that takes you to the resource center. And then for club information, for your role, you know, there's a whole bunch of different categories of resources. You want to focus probably on club administration. This would be good just to go through and look at what are the resources they have. And if you look over, they've got 3 pages of resources. I couldn't fit it all on here, but they've got 3 pages. I think there's probably 9 or 12 boxes on each page of resources that may or may not be of help to you for your club administration. So that's how you get to the LCI Resource Center. All right. That's what it looks like. You know, when you get to club administration, when you click on that, that's what this looks like. So, you know, Club Excellence Award, Best Practice for Financial Transparency, Blueprint, all things for you to look at. And you can while away a lot of time looking at this stuff. All right, so that's the Resource Center. Then there's the Lions Learning Center, and this is more for like your professional growth, so to speak. And you access this by going on My Lion. Hopefully you each have set up a My Lion account, but if you haven't, you know, it's not that hard to do, but you're going to go to My Lion, sign in, and follow those steps. So here's what that looks like. If you Google My Lion, you know, you'll get a link to go to it. And this is what the start page looks like for My Lion. So you have to enter you either have to sign in if you already have an account. So it's usually your email address and a password that you've set up. And if you haven't, you just, you know, click the registration button there and you set up your account. Just as a note, if you don't have a My Lion account yet, when you register, there's 2 things you're going to need. You're going to need your member number, which you can get from your secretary, your club secretary. And then you also have to have an email address, and it must be the email address that's on file with LCI. So again, check with your secretary, what email address do they have on file, have you in with, and what's your member number. And if you want to change that email address, your secretary can do that real quickly so that you have an up-to-date email address. So that's what you need to register. But when you sign in, if you do that, here's the screen that comes up, your member portal. All right, and you can see there's different options up there. My Lion, that kind of gives that's where you have information about your service things, and it'll tell you what you'll see all the stuff that your club has done as far as service types of things, and you can access there. My LCI, as club president, you have access to that. Not everybody does. That's an officer's place, but in My LCI, that's where you can go in and you can look at your member information and get you know, all the information about your members in that. Insights just is kind of like a statistical thing about your club. Learn is what we're going to look at here in a minute, but you can access Shop, which is, You can go in there and you can get club supplies or whatever, and it'll be charged directly to your club, not to you as club president. All right, so you don't have to lay out the money or whatever. It'll be billed to your club. Of course, you
They
want
have-
permission to do that.
Dennis,
Yeah, Lisa.
they actually have to check that. It gives a place for your credit card number, and it also gives a place where you can charge it to your club.
Oh, okay. So you have to
It
designate.
doesn't automatically do that.
Okay, you have to designate if you want to charge your club. Yeah. I
Right.
think just you and your secretary, and do you know who else, Lisa, might have permission to do that?
Some treasurers.
Okay. And I don't know about club administrators.
Oh, that's true. They probably should have access to that.
And then mine's hidden. I can't see what that for. Is that Connect on the last one?
Yes.
Okay, Connect. So that's yeah, hooking up with other things, whatever. But we're going to focus on the Learn. All right, you're going to click on Learn to get to the Lions Resource Center, and this will come up. And there's a number of things, online training you can see there. We're going to go to the Lions Learning Center. You can see below there's Institute training. So it gives you a number of different things that our broader Lions organization offers in terms of training, but specifically the Lions Resource Center or Lions Learning Center, you'll click the Go button there, and that will bring up a screen that looks like this. And you can see that I logged into the club president's learning path just to see what they had to offer and help me prepare for this. But over here is the content library. When you click on content library, then it will come up with a listing of all the Learning Center courses that are available and the ratings and everything for them. You can look at them on a list like that or in a grid form. So, but there's quite a few things listed there. There's probably at least 20 different online course kinds of things that are offered there. And you can see the club president learning path is there, which involves two seminars. One is just on all general officer responsibilities, and then one on the club president specifically. So that's the Lions Learning Center. And then of course there's Lions University, which is sponsored by the USA Canada Lions Leadership Forum. Highly recommend, go to Lions, the USA Canada Lions Leadership Forum when you get a chance. We're disappointed this year. It was supposed to be in Kentucky, in Louisville, which was an easy drive, and we don't get to go because it got canceled. But they are going to have an online one in the upcoming newsletter. Take a look. There will be some information in the newsletter about connecting, and it's a real bargain. I think it's $20, and you can attend classes over 3 days on, I forget how many different seminars they're having, but it'll be a nice opportunity, and they may have something in there for you that'll help you with presidents. But Lions University, that's linked. If you click on Lions University, there's their homepage. Again, you have to set up an account, so you have to log in. I'm sorry, I couldn't quite fit that. Log in or register, similar to what you did there. So if you haven't ever been on here before, you'll have to set up an account. But after you have it set up, then you can log. When you click on log in, nothing much changes. It looks the same, which I was surprised. But the courses that are going to apply to club level, I look at this. The Lions Resource Center, I kind of look at as high school for Lions. And then once you've gone through those, then you can come to the university and get to the graduate level courses, and you can do your bachelor's. And the bachelor's courses are basically for club level officers and leadership positions. The master's courses are for district level, and the doctorate are even beyond that. So when you click on the bachelor's, this is what comes up. And notice up there, very at the top, it says "Howdy, Dennis." So it'll say "Howdy" to you. So somebody from the Midwest or South must have designed this to do "Howdy," so that's where you know that you're logged in then. But this is what the top half of the page looks like. And you see it's bachelor's and leading your Lions club. And then when you scroll down, I did the "Howdy, Dennis" there, the bachelor's. When you scroll down, it has the listing of courses. So you can see that there's about 20 different courses there that you can take related to the bachelor's degree. And this is you get a certificate if you want it by completing all 10 of the 101 through 110, go through all those and then pick 5 from the second list. And you complete those, when you can go to USA Canada Forum, and you'll be handed a certificate as your bachelor's certificate. You'll be handed that by the international president at the forum. So it's kind of a neat opportunity. And then after you complete that, you can go on and do your master's if you want and your doctorate. But you can take a look at those. You click on any of those and you come up. So maybe you want to learn more about conflict resolution. I was saying before that these things can help you outside of Lions Club. They're very good. Conflict resolution works in a lot of different settings. So you click on conflict resolution, and up comes a course description with that. And I don't have, you can just see the very top of it. There's a window there that you would start the video, and it's in the online training course that goes with that. So that's Lions University. And that, overtime, sorry I didn't time it out too well. What time is it, Lisa?
8:57.
Oh my, okay. So I tried to do 2 hours in an hour and a half and I missed it. So now I know how long this is. I'll have to figure out how to pare it down a little bit. But
Dennis,
yeah, go ahead.
hey, it's Ray Hines. The online registration for like the learning courses, is that available for anyone? It's just they can't see the My Lions Club, but they can see the learning, right? For all the club members?
Any line can go in to see those, yes, if
Okay.
that's what you're asking. Yeah, that's not available just to officers. Anybody can set up a My Lion account and go to the Lions Resource Center. Any Lion can go to Lions University and set up
But
the,
it's just the president and them that can see that one part.
yes, yeah, only, well, president, secretary, club administrator, and I think they're the 3 that can see in My LCI and see like member phone numbers and addresses and that kind of stuff about their
All right,
program.
thank you.
Other questions? Shirley, I think Shirley, if you're trying to talk to me, you need to unmute yourself. Down at the bottom, pull your cursor down. Pull your cursor down to the bottom, and over at the far left is that microphone. You have to click on the microphone. You see your microphone down at the bottom? Yeah. If you slide your cursor down there, Lance, you've got your hand up while she's looking for that. Unmute yourself and go ahead if you have a question, Lance.
I was just going to say, you're the host. Are you the host of the meeting?
I am the host, yes.
You should be able to unmute her.
You know, I can mute everybody, but I can't unmute. Yeah. So.
I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm the president of our York Toastmasters this year.
Uh-huh.
And we're struggling with some of the same issues.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I'm glad I'm not president.
Shirley, look at your screen. I'm going to try something. This might give you something to unmute with. No? Okay. Yeah, Shirley, you've got to slide your cursor down to the bottom of the screen so that that toolbar comes up at the bottom, and then the little mute thing.
What
Hey,
about
Dennis?
if you share your screen with her? to show her.
Hey, Dennis.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll work on hers or not, but on mine, all you have to do is put your cursor over your own picture. And there's a little
Yeah.
box that comes up that says unmute. You don't have to go to the bottom of the screen.
Oh,
Just
okay.
slide your cursor over your own picture.
She doesn't have a picture or something. I think she might have lost her video. Let me see.
Yeah.
And if
Dennis,
it's-
I've lost the video too. This is Liz.
Okay. Well, sure. It doesn't show that Shirley shows that her video's on because we can see her. But yes, I can't see you anymore, Liz. You must have
Yeah,
disabled your
the video stopped.
You must have disabled your video somehow.
I probably did, don't know what to do.
Yeah. Shirley, I wish I could read your lips. If you want to write it down and hold it up to the camera, write your question down, I can do that.
I can just call her.
Okay.
I have her on speed dial now.
Okay.
when you slide your cursor over top of your own picture, right next to the blue box that says unmute, there's 3 little dots, and you can either stop video or resume video right there.
Yeah. I think for some reason she can't see us on her screen is what I'm picking up.
Yeah, if she resumes video, she should be able to.
Yeah. I can't control that at all. But so folks, I am going to send out a follow-up to this to everybody who signed up for this, and I'll put in the Constitution and bylaws. I will put in the that organizational chart I showed you, the e-handbook. I'll put in this my PowerPoint, the regular thing. Liz, you're back! Yay! Okay.
Hey, I know. I
And then
just keep pushing buttons.
And then there's also going to be a link to a survey that we're going to ask you to complete. This helps us
Okay,
out
thanks.
when we do the what do I want to say? We apply to LCI for a little bit of funding for doing these trainings, and they give us a little bit of money, but we have to show that we have gotten feedback on the seminars too. So there will be a link to a Survey Monkey. It'll be 10 questions. It's pretty easy to do. Some of the questions are just yes, no, or you just click a response. Some other ones we ask you to give us a little bit of dialogue if you have it. So we'd really appreciate if you would fill that out. So Shirley, you made
Okay,
it.
I'm back.
Okay.
What I wanted to know is for those various courses, are there charges?
No, not at
No.
all.
Okay.
Oh, nice line, Ray.
Yeah. Thanks.
Oh. Anybody else? Wow. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I did want to give a shout out to Eugene Taylor. Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad to see your face so I know who you are when we come in. Eugene is a transplant from New York? No.
Ohio.
Ohio, yes. A past district governor in Ohio who has
Oh, wow.
recently come to Pennsylvania.
Wow, thank you for attending.
And which club are you, Eugene?
Currently Boiling Springs.
Boiling Springs, that's right. Okay. So
One thing that I might ask though is consider the size of that email. You might want to send several emails and take your attachments and kind of spread them across there, because there's some of these things, I'm not sure about AOL, but some of them limit how much you can get through, and they won't take one
okay.
Helvetia thing.
All right, I can do that. I can look at the size of the documents because for the most part, they're Word. I don't have a whole lot of graphics in the slideshow, so hopefully that won't be too bad either. I use Mac. I have a Mac, and I use their suite of tools. So some of them, I don't know how well the slideshow will translate to a PowerPoint. So I'm sure you'll take what you can get. Hopefully it'll look okay. Bruce, you're going to have to wake up now. I'm sorry. It won't log out by itself. Any other
Thanks for
questions? Anybody else?
Thanks for all your help on this,
Sure.
Dennis.
I appreciate you tuning in and your patience with the technical difficulties and the length. So hope you all have a good evening and a good weekend.
You too.
All
Hey.
right.
Thank you so much.
Bye, y'all.
You bet. Take care.
Tally ho.
Thanks, Dennis.
You're welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks for your patience today.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you got on. Yes.
Slow learner.